Good afternoon, everybody. I think we've fixed the chat issue now. If anybody does have any difficulty in hearing or anything, just pop a quick note into the chat. For those of you who don't know, my name is Michelle and I've got Matt here with me today, and we're just going to take you through some of the changes that have occurred in Inventor over the past few years. There'll be mark features, model states, instance properties and various other things that we'll be going through. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You are all in mute and the webinar will be recorded so that you can watch it again at a later date if needs be. Any questions, if you can pop them in the Q&A box, and we will do our very best to answer them either as the webinar is ongoing or at the end. Anything that we can't answer instantly, we will come back to you at a later date. With that, I'll hand over to Matt. Oh, just one more thing. This webinar is partly pre-recorded and partly live. So you might notice that some of the volume drops a tad on the pre-recorded bits, but if there's any issues with that, just pop it in the chat and we will see what we can do. So I'll pass you over to Matt now. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In regards to the pre-recorded and live bit, I'm live now. Hello. The pre-recorded bit, little competition. Spot the bit where I'm reading from a script and spot the bits where I'm going live. And you can tell by the tone of my voice, it changes slightly.
We may give you a prize for the first person that can spot that.
Right, jumping straight in then. Bit of talking first. First slide. Go on, there we go. Performance. Over the last couple of years, Autodesk have invested a lot of money in performance updates for Inventor. We've got a list here of all the things that have been improved in the 2020 release. I appreciate some people have moved on from 2020. There'll be people on 21, 22 and the current 23. But I appreciate as well that there's quite a few users still on older versions. Not too long ago, I was upgrading a customer from 2016 to 2023, and the feedback was performance was leaps and bounds above and beyond what it used to be. So it's a good thing. They're investing a lot of money. I'm not going to read everything on this particular list. All of this is available through the What's New in the help file anyway, but the different areas of the software, be it assemblies, which is the most of this screen that we're seeing here, be it part environments, a lot of money has been invested. I was working on a file yesterday that had just shy of 250,000 components in it. Inventor was more than capable of dealing with it. Truth be told, my graphics card was struggling, but my machine is 5 years old. But as far as the software is concerned, it's more than capable of dealing with very, very large assemblies. Some additional improvements in 21 and 22. Again, a lot of work on those large assembly performance areas. Parts themselves only get so big. It can be a complicated part or it can be a simple part, but you know, there's a size or complexity on screen for a part. But in the assembly world, the number of parts that you can have in an assembly is probably limited by your machine, not by Inventor. Inventor will work with very, very large amounts of memory, probably definitely more memory than you can afford. So the limit is the PC rather than the software itself. A new feature for 2023 in the performance world is with graphics. GPU, graphics card ray tracing. If you have an NVIDIA RTX card, which I think these days are becoming the norm, the newer RTX cards, I'll rephrase that. If you've got an NVIDIA card, you're all right. If you've got an RTX card, you're even better. These can be used for graphics card rendering as opposed to CPU rendering. It's a technology preview. In 2023, it's something that Autodesk have started working on. And rather than keep it back until it's absolutely perfected, they decided to release it to the users. It's a tick box within the application options that you need to opt in, but you get some benefits in the rendering world. You get real-time ray tracing rendering. This is a screenshot, as you can see, but potentially that model could be span on screen while maintaining that visual fidelity. If you've got an RTX card, it will also do something called denoising. If you've ever seen the renderer in Inventor, Inventor Studio, for example, the image starts speckly and progressively gets better and better. With the denoising technology that ships with the RTX level of graphics cards, that speckling is greatly reduced. RTX will give you the performance, so anything from an RTX 2060. It could be a gaming card, it could be a Quadro card. When the new 4000 series RTX cards are released this side of Christmas, I assume, if you want to go out and spend several thousands of pounds on a 4090, I'm fairly sure that the performance will be absolutely top level. If you've not got an RTX graphics card, but you are running an NVIDIA graphics card, you can still make use of this, but without the denoising technology. And also AMD graphics cards are capable as well. In 2023, you get what you're given, which is not a bad thing, but it is a technology preview. It is improved upon in the next service pack. So when that arrives, there will be some improvements, and I'm sure by 2024, there'll be improvements again. But it's a background process that's being developed, but Autodesk have given us an opt-in preview so that we can give feedback. And they actually ask you on the application options dialog box for feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, so they can improve the process. User interface. Anybody that's coming from Inventor prior to 2010 will remember the old-fashioned file menu interface, and then we got the ribbon. At the 2018 level, we started a process of rewriting the dialog boxes. So we started with the measure command. Rather than having three, I think it was, separate measure commands, they were all bundled into the one interface. You start measure, you click the geometry, and you get the relevant value, whether that's an angle or a length or an area or a distance or whatever the case might be. So by improving and consolidating three dialog boxes into one, it makes life a little bit better. 2019, we then added in the whole command. I appreciate this is the what's new in the 20s, but I'm just setting some foundations, if you like. And what we can see here, we're starting to get a little bit of consistency in the look and feel of dialog boxes. Over Inventors up to version 2018, I'm thinking something like 22 versions of Inventor. The dialog boxes were written to do a particular job, probably designed by umpteen different people. So they all had a different look and feel. Autodesk have made the decision now to start the ball rolling on homogenizing the look and feel of these dialog boxes. If you can drive one, you're 80% towards driving other dialog boxes. You've learned most of what you need on the first one. 2020 introduced extrusion, revolution, and sweep, and you can certainly see here we're starting to get a level of consistency. By the time we get to 2023, there's an explosion of dialog boxes. Truth be told, these are all the ones I could find, and I'm sure buried somewhere there are other dialog boxes that I've not included. These are all the part-based dialog boxes, and as you can see, there is consistency. They all have the same look, the same feel, the same methodologies. This is the assembly-based panels that I could find. Again, there's probably a fair few more included that I just couldn't dig out in time for this particular presentation. A little bit more of a deep dive into these particular panels. Some of it is on the surface and it's obvious as to what you're doing. The direction, the distance. Just put my pointer on screen, there we go. So direction, are we going left, are we going right, we're going both directions, symmetrical, are we going to be extruding, asymmetrical? But there's a lot of different options in here that are potentially hidden. Looking at the options menu, top right, the burger as we call it, a couple of options there. Keep sketch visible on. Usually when you create a sketch and extrude it, the sketch is then consumed by that feature. it tends to be used only the once. If you want to reuse that sketch, you have to go into the browser, turn the visibility on or share it, and then start the extrusion command again. With keep sketches visible ticked, for the duration of this particular dialog box, you start the extrude, you click the sketch, it extrudes it, you click the apply button, the little cross in the bottom right hand corner. The sketch is then visible to be reused again and again and again, and it then is removed once or turned off once you click OK. If you do share that sketch but don't use it the second time, when clicking cancel, it's unshared so as to not clutter up the browser. Predicting the Boolean and direction, normally when you start an extrusion, it extrudes up away from the face in the positive direction using the join option. And if you then drag that extrusion into the model, down if you like, it then converts it over into a cut. So the direction and whether you're going in or out of the model can dictate whether it becomes a join or a cut. With predict Boolean switched on, it does that. If you switch it off, it's a join in either direction. As we move down the dialog box, something that's not always that obvious is which button, which text box, which input is currently active. For a button, we can see that we've got the blue background. It certainly stands out more than it did on previous interfaces. I think sometimes it was a very subtle blue background to identify the currently pressed button. I think this one certainly stands out better than it did in the past. And for a text box input, we've got a subtle blue underline just to indicate which one is the active input at that point. For the buttons themselves, we've got icons, but if we drop the little arrow bottom right down, we can then click on icons or drop down, and then we can see the icons and the text. In the ribbon interface, I've used the software for decades now. In the ribbon interface, I still have icons and text. That's just the way my brain works. If I go on site and I'm working with a customer and they just have icons, it puts me on my back foot because it's what each individual is used to. For these property panels, I'm more than happy to use the icons, but I like the fact that if needs be, I can switch on the terminology as well. If you've learnt that the direction or the symmetric or asymmetric for one, the same icon is used on every other panel as well. And we can also do the same for the Boolean, whether we're joining or cutting or intersecting, etc. So a couple of the hidden gems. I'm looking at the extrusion command there, but this runs true for hole, for revolution, for sweep, for everything else. Talking of the hole command, this has got a different set of icons. So pre-select sketch center points. When you create a sketch and put center points on that sketch, they are the cross points as opposed to the dot points. When you start the hole command, they will be pre-selected. That's the behavior that the hole command has always done. Sometimes you want that, maybe sometimes you don't. So we now have the option to turn that particular default on or off. What we can also do, just moving down at the bottom there, allow center point creation. When we start the hole command, if we don't have a sketch already created, or we have a sketch that's got points in it, if we start the hole command with center point creation switched on, we can click on that sketch face and it will drill holes wherever we've clicked. It will add the center points into the sketch automatically. If allow center point creation is switched off, you are basically just relying on the existing sketch with its existing points for drilling the holes. With those existing points, be it cross points or dot points, we do have an option as well for window selecting. Historically, Inventor would pre-select the sketch points, but allow you to select any point on that sketch. And if you did a window select, you'd grab everything. You'd get the 2 or 3 cross points that you were actually interested in, but you might end up with 25 other points, depending on the complexity of the face that you're sketching on. With window select points only ticked, the cross points, center points are selected where the dot points are. They can still be clicked manually, but the window select would filter them out, just to make life a little bit easier. none of these in their own right, I think will win you the lottery. But building them all up, each individual thing, it's you know, I think they're more than the sum of their parts. Two more things on here. We've also got breadcrumbs. Now the breadcrumb, we've got the name of the hole and we've got the name of the sketch, or the extrusion and the sketch, or the revolution or the sweep, etc. With the breadcrumbs, the active environment that you're in is in blue. So as far as this dialog box is concerned, I'm currently in the 3D hole. I am deciding on its size and its type. But if I click on the sketch 2, that will then activate the sketch, which will allow me to then dimension and edit and add and remove elements in that particular sketch. Usually, or previously, shall we say, before the breadcrumbs, you'd start a sketch, you draw it, you start the 3D command, hole, you could pick up on the geometry. If you then decide you want to add anything additional, you'd have to cancel the 3D command, edit the sketch, make the changes, come back out, start the 3D command. So you'd be bouncing backwards and forwards. With these breadcrumbs, by selecting one, it will put you in that particular environment. Click on the sketch, it will put you in the sketch so you can add and remove and document. You will then see a preview of the hole. If you click on the hole breadcrumb, you will be put in the 3D feature where you can change the size, the type, etc. And you'll see a preview of the sketch. So it allows you to conveniently bounce between the two environments without cancelling the dialog box. In addition to that, if you select if you're in the hole, i.e. it's got the blue text and you select that, it lets you rename it on the fly. So you can name the 3D feature, you can name the sketch at the point of creation. The last two slides, those little bits of hidden things, if it's available in extrude, it would be available in revolve. If it can be done in sweep, it can be done in combine. There's obviously the front of house, the visible things, and then it's worth, I think sometimes just investigating. When something's new, some people will just keep using it the way they always have. For the sake of 30 seconds, just investigate dialog boxes and see what they do. You know, sometimes there's a hidden gem. Icons. At the 2020 revision of Inventor, Autodesk redesigned pretty much every icon within Inventor. There's a couple of thousand icons that have been updated. I've heard tell of about 4,000. The interface is more consistent with itself, where the same command is in multiple places. It's more consistent with other products within the Autodesk family. The line command in Inventor is the same as the line command in AutoCAD. If you've learned one, you've learned the other. So again, it's all about, to some extent, making it look nicer, but also taking the opportunity to make things work better. The extrude command was redesigned for the panel, but it gave additional functionality. The fillet command, for example, prior to 2023, was a single fillet command that had multiple options. That's now been separated out into 3 separate fillets. You've got edge fillet, you've got face fillet, and you've got full round. And each of those particular commands then has, where appropriate, additional properties. Something actually I've just realized I've not mentioned, I'll just go back a couple of slides, is the presets. Presets allow you to set up the dialog box for an extrusion. Not that exciting, truth be told, because you're just deciding on the direction, the distance and the depth, etc. But possibly more relevant on the hole command. It doesn't take that long, but 5–10 seconds, you've decided on the hole, whether it's a clearance or tapped or tapered. You've decided on the seat, counterbore, countersunk, spot face, etc. You've decided on the termination and whether it's threaded and the depth and all those particular settings. But if you're reusing that type of hole again and again and again, at least once a day, at least once every session, you're going to have to go through this full dialog box and refettle all the settings. With the presets, you can, if you like, program the dialog box, create a preset, and then that's available next time round. These presets don't fix you, but it could set up a tapped, counterboard, spot face, whatever hole, and then you can manipulate the sizes on a case-by-case basis. 5 seconds saved here, 10 seconds saved there. Not much for one hole, But if you're drilling 1,000 holes a day, it all builds up. Some people like presets, some people don't. So as we can see there, we do have the opportunity to hide the presets. The presets are a file that's normally on your machine, so they are your presets. But Inventor can be set up via the application options, so it reads presets from a specific location. So you could have user presets or a company-wide set of presets, ensuring that everybody is effectively singing from the same hymn sheet. Right. One of the first things you'll notice when you fire up Inventor first time is the new home screen. It is a work in progress. What it currently does, it does very well. Truth be told, there are a couple of elements that are missing from the previous home screen, but Autodesk are happy to evolve this. And I think on whether it's a point release of a service pack or a new yearly release, this particular environment will be improved upon. We've got recent list, you've got, I'm showing both versions here, but we can show that as a thumbnail or we can show it as a list of information. Obviously, you can sort by name, by location, by date modified, etc. We've got the option to create filters, so we can look at all the work we've done this week, today, this month, etc. You can turn on and off various files. My list has only got 7 or 8 components in it, but I can imagine some people's list will have 50. I think 50 is the default for the maximum number of recently used files. If you're a Vault user as well, we can also see the status of those files, be it checked out, checked in, available, not available, etc. And again, those statuses can be filtered against. The home screen can be switched off. It's on by default, but I think it's worth investigating and appreciate as well if there's something missing from the previous revisions, previous versions of the home screen, that will be added going forward. Right, so let's have a look now at something new for 2023, which is the mark feature. The mark feature is basically it's used for etching and engraving, etc. It allows us to create features. Think of a split on a surface. Sometimes you can split it and create the shape that you're after. Sometimes with text, for example, you can't. So the mark feature gives us more capabilities in marking, etching, engraving, etc. So this is where we pop into the first video.
You told them.
Oh, no, I might have told you it was a video, but the competition is spotting when I move from a script to a live, and we'll see where we go. So there we go. And I apologise if the volume is low on this one. We're doing the best we can. The whole webinar is being recorded anyway.
It is.
So needs be, we'll re-edit and pop a louder video in its place.
I can select text or lines. What I can't select both. Once one selected, because it's an extrude, I'll also alternatively, I could use the split command. Rather than split command is text. So first of all, that's out. It will allow me to select the lines. It's going to create a zero thickness feature. Unfortunately, in this particular case, it also extends that feature in both directions. So again, it's still going to give me what I want. This is where the mark feature comes in. As advertised, the mark feature or but it's got a couple of options. So that's the mark itself. It's a very simple dialog box. Pick the feature, decide the type of mark you're going to create. notice mine starts out with the surface outline option. I pick text, I pick sketch geometry, and I click OK.
At this point, I'm just going to interject. I'm getting some feedback that people can't hear the video. Quick question. For those that can't hear the video, can you hear it at all, although quiet, or is there zero volume? If needs be, I will try and remember what I was doing when I was doing the video and do a live voiceover, but it might not be quite in sync. 5% volume, very quiet, extremely faint. So yeah, okay, I appreciate that. Evidently, the audio from the video is not being shared through the PowerPoint. I think it must be just being picked up on by the microphone. So it will be quiet. Now I could increase the volume of the microphone, but then I'll deafen everybody when I start talking. So what I will do, I will mute the video and I will talk over it, thus negating the entire reason for creating the video in the first place. But never mind. I think I know what I'm up to.
Technology.
So, technology. So with the mark command, we select the mark command, we select the sketching question, and it breaks the surface. But as you can see there, it's a zero thickness extrusion effectively, like the split command would be. But it takes into consideration the text, it takes into consideration open loops. There are a couple of options as well. With the same text style going in, we can use outline or strokes. So outline gives us the double lines like we would get with an extrusion, whereas stroke only gives us the center line. Much better for laser engraving. We don't burn out the stepper motor. We've also got a couple more options in addition to this. We've got the mark through option. Mark surface, the first two, only affect the surface that the sketch is attached to. With the mark through option, both outline and stroke are supported. Both sides of the component are affected. Basically, it's as though we did an infinitely thin laser cut, but it went through the entire product. I think we're going to spin the model around at this point and show you the back surface. There we go. So that's written backwards, but what can you do? Above and beyond the mark being better than split and being better than extrude is being able to export it. And we can got some settings. I think at this point, I'm just talking about creating those mark styles to begin with. You get the mark surface and the mark through built in. They're just starters, a foundation, if you like. You can create your own unique styles then. Depth is surface or through, and text is outline or strokes. If you're going for the stroke option, whatever you've typed in using whatever font you've typed, this is then converted into a single line font in the background. There are a handful of, as you can see there, fonts built in, and I'm sure you could download others off the internet. In addition to the style, whether it's surface or through, outline or strokes, we can also play around with the layer. If we export these components to DXF, if it was a sheet metal component, for example, where you're exporting the flat pattern, you can then decide on the layer that the front surface, the layer that the back surface is exported to. So I'm just converting this file into sheet metal, which then gives me access to the flat pattern, which then subsequently gives me access to the export face, save copy as option, etc. Once we've saved the copy, spat it out as a DXF, we can open that up in AutoCAD itself. And we can see that there's some layer management has occurred. There we go. So normal extrude, it's just a feature. It's come in and layer 0, and then the surface and the through options have come in on their own layers, own colours, own line types, etc. Worth setting your stall out. You've only got to set it up once. edit your styles and standards, save it to your library. Hopefully that's available as a universal setting via your project file for all your employees. It's 10 minutes of a job. Scratch that, it's 10 seconds of a job. But once you've got it sorted, once it's done properly, it's done. Right, I didn't do too bad with that, I don't think.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Model states. Now, this is a biggie. Model states came into the product in 2021. They've been improved upon in 22. They've been improved upon in 23, and no doubt 24 they'll be improved upon again. Model states allow you to build configurations into the file, whether that file is a part or an assembly. To the end user, model states drive are very similar to iParts and iAssemblies, but they are not a replacement for. Everything still has its place. As we can see with a couple of these videos here, we're working on parts, we can work on assemblies. Model states can change components. We suppress or unsuppress different components depending on the job that thing is doing. If it's a part file, we can edit parameters, we can change properties. Basically, we're building the configuration of that thing, that umpteen different types of pin, into one file. In this particular set of screenshots, we've got a sheet metal component at the top where we've either got one flange or three flanges, and we can then suppress those depending on a case-by-case basis. At the bottom, we've got some form of pneumatic hydraulic system, and we can see there that the end component has been swapped out. One of the big things about model states is there are no files in the background. If I created all of this family of bolts as an iPart, which is what Content Center does, there'd be 36 files on the hard drive. There's 35 different sizes plus the iPart factory itself. Every time you use an iPart or an iAssembly, it creates that particular configuration as a specific file that then lives on the hard drive. Truth be told, managing 35 files is no great problem, but when you've got hex head, screws, bolts, cap head, cheese head, this, that, and the other, potentially your Content Center folder could be hundreds and hundreds of files. Model states is not a replacement for Content Center. Content Center still uses iParts, but I could see a point in the future where Autodesk might swap that out. But for now, iParts and iAssemblies definitely still have their place. I'm just going to take a look at this video now of creating model states. So again, I will do this, I will voice this live. Get rid of the volume there. So forgive me if I don't get the timing right. I've got to see what the next button I press is before I know what I'm talking about. There's always a model states node in the browser. At the top of the browser there, we see model states primary. So whether you're actively using model states or not, the node will be there. To create a new model state, we just right click and select new. At this point, I'm wondering what I must be doing a lot of talking on the original video at this point, so I'm just going to quickly fast forward it to find somewhere. There we go. There we go. Rewind it. So we right click, we select new. I'm just going to wait for it to catch up. There we go. It's doing something now. Initially, we'll get a warning that talks about member scope and factory scope. Whenever we make edits, because this is a configuration, there's a spreadsheet that lives in the background. In member scope, we are only editing that one row in the spreadsheet. So modifications changing are occurring to this file only. If we make changes while in factory scope, those changes occur to every single configuration within the file. So if I change the material thickness in factory scope, every single one of these plates would become thicker or thinner. If I change the material thickness in member scope, I then have a thick one, a thin one, a tall one, a short one, etc., etc. I've created a new model state, and then I'm going to right click on each one of these unrequired features and just suppress them. I think on making some form of a logo, a sticker or a badge or something. So I'm going to create another new one. I can copy it or I can create new. Give it a bit of a rename there. And then it's just a case of working my way through the browser once I've activated it and flipping the suppress, unsuppressed state of each particular component. And then I can double click on an element and we can see that the component is flicking between the different configurations. An important difference between this and iParts, which you could easily replicate, is the iPart is now creating at least 2 files in the background. I've got the model states IP2 factory, and then I've got the SO and the SS variation as an individual specific IPT. With the model states, it's the same file, will stretch and grow and shrink and chop and change. You only have one copy. What we can see here, we're changing the properties of each individual instance to match the name. And then I think I just make my way through and add additional ones. Editing via the spreadsheet, sometimes when you've got lots of numbers to type in, it's easier to modify a spreadsheet and copy and paste and do it en masse and a big batch editing sequence. Any changes that you make, once you click save in the spreadsheet and shut it down, it'll then be pushed back through into the model state file itself. I think in this case, I'm just quickly going through and creating the remaining options. You'll be glad that I sped this bit of the video up. Either that or I just became, used to what I was doing. Right, so that's now been saved. We've got 4 variations plus the master file. The master file itself would tend to contain every possible combination. I'm going to create a drawing of this, and then we can see as we place views within the drawing, we can then decide on which model state that particular view is going to use. So using copy and paste just to replicate the views a couple of times, and then going into each one and ensuring that it's using the correct model state. In this particular case, I would now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 files: the master, the primary, the factory, iPart, the drawing, plus 4 variations of that particular iPart. So I'm already saving myself a fair few files in the background that don't need to be managed. If we add these model states to an assembly, wait for myself to catch up. They're all being pasted using whatever whichever option I've currently got active, but then we can expand each node in the browser and then just a quick double click, and you can see there we can then swap out model state A for model state B. And I also feel that actually sometimes it's a little bit quicker because we're not having to load files off the hard drive. They're all the same part, they're all model states.ipt. So they're listed individually on the model data tab, but we can see there, because they've all got the same part number, they're all combined and merged together with just a quantity of 4, even though in reality they're all different things. If we unmerge the part number, which is probably blank at the moment, or model states, we can see they're all listed individually. I'm going to add in a new iProperty title. Because we edited those in the individual instance, we can see that it's all being displayed there. It does feel like I've missed the mark on some of my typing. So just popping back into the spreadsheet, because it's a bit quicker now everything exists, it's quicker to make the changes at that point. Fettle some spelling mistakes, correct some of the nomenclature. And when we go back into the 3D world, we don't need to regenerate all the IPTs. It's not going to be a problem with things being checked in or checked out in the Vault world, because it's just one single file that will all update automatically. And we can see there that everything's solved itself. Bill of materials, all the titles have updated. I'm managing one file, I'm not managing 5 files. And there we go. Now, leading on from this, a nice segue into instance properties. Each one of these files is an IPT, but it's the same IPT. So they've all got the same description, title, material, unless of course it's a model state, in which case the description, the title, material can be overridden. But all the information is coming from the same place. If I use the same model state multiple times, they will all have the same title. They'll all have the same information. Instance properties allows me to assign different information to each occurrence of that file within this particular assembly. The benefit of this could be, looking at some of these screenshots, we've got the same valve twice, but they're doing 2 different jobs, or they've got different tag numbers. We might have the same tank 3 times. We might be using the same gearbox 4 times. With built-in iProperties, custom properties, you're telling the user what the component is. You don't tell them what the component does. With instance properties, because we can assign different values to different occurrences, we can then start, again, like I said, putting tag numbers on there, giving locations, customer IDs, etc. So know the video, we'll click play. We'll turn that down. So we've already inserted a number of these components. I think I've just done my own preamble there, so I'll fast forward that. So looking at the bill of materials, we can see that they're all coming from instance properties. It's all the same file used 4 times. But I'm going to add in the title, and we can see that the title is different because, again, they are built around model states. I should point out that instance properties are not a unique thing of model states. It can be done for anything. I've added in a custom property there called position. If I modify the cell, it will write the same position value to all occurrences of instance.ipt, because it's a value that lives in the file itself. But if I use create instance property, each one can be different. This information is held in this assembly. So I'm just putting in the position, the top left, the bottom right, top right, bottom left, etc. So as I'm working my way through, each one gets its own unique value. Indicated by blue, it's not the true value of the component, it's just been overridden on a case-by-case basis. If I drop an occurrence of this file in another assembly, I would create the instance properties from scratch. They only live, they only exist in the assembly that you're looking at itself. Now that I've applied this information, I'm going to pop over and create a drawing. Applying some balloons, normally your balloon, you've got your ID, your item number. I think in this particular case, I'm pulling out the item number eventually and the title. So we've got a couple of item numbers on there. Editing the balloon style, in this case, just doing it on the fly. We're going to create a new one, and this is going to include the title. Add in the title property, and we expect the title to be different for each one because it's coming from the model state spreadsheet. And then we'll flick those over so we can see that that's mark, surface, outline, that one's mark, surface, stroke. Each one's different. I think I then just complete this by adding the 2 missing balloons. So information built into the specific file can be pulled out from that file. And if it's a model state, that information can differ if needs be. But unique information as far as the assembly itself is concerned, I'm just going to add another couple of those in. And we can see when I balloon those, they'll have the same title as other balloons that have already been used. So there's nothing to differentiate those top 3 occurrences of the file. So bill of materials, because I've copied them, it's added in the same instance properties as where the copy came from. In this particular case, I'm going into each individual occurrence of the file, right click instance properties, and I can modify. So doing it as a batch en masse in the bill of materials editor, or doing it on an individual basis. Now, I'm well aware that at some point during this process, I right clicked, I think just there, I right clicked on one while I still had the other selected. So I've tripped myself up on the video, and I couldn't find no way of hiding it rather than just re-recording it from scratch, which I didn't want to do. So we'll see that when I apply the balloons now, I'm going to take a copy of that balloon, and this one's going to be balloon IP, balloon instance property. As far as the balloon's concerned, it's just reporting the value of a property called position. Doesn't exist, so we're going to create a new custom property. It doesn't care where that value comes from. It could be a real I property, it could be an instance property. It's just something that's read from the file. Adding in those additional balloons, we can now see that each one has got bottom right, top right, bottom right. Suddenly realized I've mistyped something. So we're now dictating, we're now annotating what the component does as well as what the component is. Making my way through and just fixing them. I could have also right-clicked on the view and gone into the bill of materials and made these changes via the bill of materials through the drawing. In this particular case, I chose to go into the assembly itself to make those changes. And we should see now we've got top right, top middle, top left, bottom left. I think instance properties are something that people have been asking for a very long time. So it's nice that it's in the product now. You can just document it that little bit easier. And we're at the end of that video. So moving on, we're going to look at iLogic now. For the moment, we've done with the videos. Looking at iLogic, I appreciate not everybody is a computer programmer. For ever and a day, Inventor has had VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, as a programming interface in the background. And it does what it does, but it's limited because of, it's a Microsoft product that's free. It does whatever Microsoft wants it to do. If you're programming professionally, you're going to be moving probably into the .NET world, whether that's VB.NET or C.NET, etc. But sometimes you want to automate a process. You want to program Inventor with a little bit more control than VB, a little bit more ease than VB, but without the complete overhead of a full-blown .NET package. iLogic is built around letting you automate Inventor. This is not an iLogic course. We can talk about iLogic at another point. But if anybody is already using iLogic, some of the improvements, the quality of life stuff, again, nothing huge, but just makes life a lot easier. We can see that we can multi-select rules now. In the past, if you wanted to run multiple rules or delete multiple rules, you had to do them one at a time. Now we can multi-select. The big one in the form editor, we've got an undo redo button. So that makes life a lot easier. And we've got some filters as well for snippets. Snippets can be a little bit of template code that's a lot of it shipped with Inventor. You can create your own snippets as well. But sometimes finding that elusive piece of code can be quite difficult. So we can now filter and search for it. Line numbers in the past didn't exist. You had to turn them on. Now they're on by default. And we also get a line number included in any warnings. I've intentionally spelt the word parameter wrong. I've got my R and my E the wrong way around. So it's now flagging, it's giving me an error on line 2. Small but useful, maximize button. Didn't have that in the past. Whenever you're creating a form that uses a true false parameter, that now defaults to a checkbox as opposed to a drop down, but you can always flick it. And a big one, if anybody out there has done iLogic and you've created forms, they were always too easy to delete. If you accidentally press delete, it just disappeared. And if you weren't using Vault or some sort of management system to keep a backup of the data, once it's gone, it's gone. So now we get a confirmation for deleting iLogic forms and rules. So that makes life a lot better. And one of the nice things, the bottom down there, with rules, anybody that's using iLogic, you can now add those iLogic rules directly to the ribbon. In the past, you had to drive it through the iLogic browser, but now we can add the rules to the ribbon. And as we can see there, we can also include the icon. Dark theme. Now, here's the thing. I think 2019, this came in as a technology preview. Think of the GPU rendering in 2023 as a technology preview. So it's okay, but it might not be absolutely bob on, but it will improve. The dark theme came in 2019, I believe, but by the time we get to 2023, it's fully fledged and it's part and parcel. I've used Inventor for so long that I expect it to use the light theme. My eyes are accustomed to it. I personally really struggle with the dark theme in Inventor because it's not what I'm used to. But I find when I'm doing essentials training, people that have got no or very little experience with Inventor very quickly flick it over to the dark theme. It's something that seems to be universal. There's so many different products out there that use the dark theme, and I appreciate it's much easier on the eye, but things just look slightly different for the old dogs, I'm afraid. But if you want to use it, by all means, tools, application options, and it's in there. Inventor read only. Forever and a day, Inventor is shipped with Inventor View, which is the package for reading Inventor files. But it wasn't Inventor, it's something effectively that converted the data. It allowed you to open a part and spin the model. It allowed you to open an assembly and spin the model. It allowed you to open a drawing and zoom and pan and print. And that was pretty much it. It was very rudimentary. It allowed you to access the drawing, zoom in on the title block, read some information and print the file. But it was never the actual file that you were looking at. It was something that was converted in the background. With Inventor Read Only, this installs with a full-blown seat of Inventor, or it can be downloaded. It is Inventor. The top screenshot there is full-blown Inventor. The bottom screenshot is Inventor Read Only. It's full Inventor. It's got the same engine. It's got the same graphics. It's got all the same capabilities. Autodesk have just turned off all the editing tools. So whilst you can't add dimensions on a drawing, you can measure the drawing, something you couldn't do in Inventor View. Whilst you can't create a fillet, you can look at the fillet and interrogate the fillet. Inventor Read Only is installed as part of Inventor. It's an additional icon. As an Inventor user, you probably won't use Inventor Read Only. But as a non-Inventor user, think somebody in the Vault world, a reviewer or a checker, you can install in full-blown Inventor as a trial, which gives you 30 days of Inventor. But after that 30 days, Inventor itself will stop working, but Inventor Read Only will carry on working. So it gives you full fidelity on the drawings. It allows you to view exactly what the CAD person clicked save on first thing yesterday morning. Like I say, it's installed as part of Inventor. As a full Inventor user, you probably wouldn't use Inventor Read Only. Just as a word of warning, Inventor Read Only 2023 has a better understanding that you've already got Inventor full blown on your machine. So it will ask nicely if you accidentally open it up. I think on slightly previous versions, 21, 22, if you fired up Inventor Read Only, it would pinch the association for the files off full-blown Inventor. So you might have a little bit of jiggery-pokery to do to get Inventor back up and running. But Inventor Read Only 2023 seems more well-behaved in regards to pinching this file association where it shouldn't do. In reality, I could go on all day. There are a whole host of updates from 20. You've got 20, 20.1, 0.2.3, 21, 21.1, 0.2.3, and so on. We're up to 23.1 at the moment. 0.4 is imminent in inverted commas. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's out by the end of October, beginning of November. There is a lot of new stuff. Some of it big, some of it small. But I think the what's new in the help file sometimes can be worth reading. I'm a big fan of whenever the new bit of software comes out is delving into the what's new and having a read. Most of it may not affect me. Some of it may not interest me, but it's nice to know the stuff's there. It's always worth having a look. I think we've got people on the call that might be new to Inventor. They bought into Inventor 2 weeks ago. We've got people that bought into Inventor 2 years ago. And we've got companies on the call that have been using Inventor for 20 years. I think sometimes you get used to using a particular function in a particular way. I do it this way because it's always worth, I think, investigating and taking a little bit of time to have a play with new functionality. When the ribbon interface came in 2010, a lot of people stuck with the classic interface for as long as possible. I think with the new panel-based dialog boxes, you've got no choice. You've got to use it. There is no classic version of the whole command versus the new version of the whole command. It is what it is. But the sooner that you embrace the technology, I think it will become a lot easier. So on that note, because I need a drink and my throat's getting croaky, just looking at the chat and the questions. If anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to field those.
You can use either the Q&A box or the chat if you've got any questions. There is training available, update training available for most of these new features. So if you've not had any official training for several years, it might be worth getting in touch with us to discuss potential update training so that we can go into the new features in more detail. If there's anything in particular that you think you might need assistance with. Well, this is easy. We don't have any questions to answer.
Oh, must have done a good job then.
Just give 1 or 2 minutes just in case anybody has any. Oh, here we go. Aye, good job.
Maybe we don't get a question. We didn't get a compliment. You know, I'll live with that. I'm happy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, feedback's always good. Thank you very much. Well, if there are no questions, I mean, if you have any questions at a later date, feel free to reach out to either Matt or myself or hello@quadrasol.co.uk, and we'll be sure to come back to you. And again, if you're looking for any training or you want to discuss any of these elements in a little bit more detail, then just reach out to us. But thank you very much for your time, because I appreciate that we've talked your ears off for a while now. And we will sign off and speak to you all again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.